who has a good definition of umami? Stupid would be nice, because then it would amuse me. Anything? Savory. Great, good one. Oh, and plus, the magic of PowerPoint when the answer is on your... is on your paper. So, savory is certainly one that comes up regularly. One definition I've heard is deliciousness. I'm sorry, my mom was an English teacher. That's not a word. So, delicious, fine, great. I've heard it is just monosodium glutamate. That was actually said yesterday that umami is MSG. It is an important part of it. But, I don't think anyone's sprinkling MSG. How many, we've got, Eric, do you sprinkle MSG in your wines?
Oh.
Yeah, so you heard it here, Chadsford Winery puts MSG in their wines. No. But no one's adding this stuff to the wine, so why are we talking about umami in a wine tasting session? Because everyone does that. But is it there? Is there MSG in the wine? Frankly, we've got the DNA sequence of all these different molecules that are in the grapes. There are shared genetic markers between grapes and strawberries. Frankly, between grapes and artichokes. There's some shared DNA. There are things that are similar. So we're going to have components that are in wine that are in other things that we didn't add. It's just from the grapes or the yeast or the soil, how it all flowed through. Not a scientific answer, but this is in there some way, some shape, some form. But usually it's the issue with the aroma and how personal it is that we smell it and it reminds us of something. I love what was said in that seminar that, as an example, two people smell the same thing. One person says swimming pool, the other says bleach. You smelled the same thing. It was chlorine, it reminded, someone goes, oh wow, this smells like the beach. No, to me it smells like coconut. Coconut tanning oil. We don't necessarily know why the wires fired off. We got a synaptic response there. We don't necessarily know why. So that's kind of fun, pulling that out of people and free-form discussions about it. Anyway, so here's umami. There it is. I don't talk about umami in blind tasting. I talk about it as far as food and wine pairing, but I don't use the word umami. I don't know about you. How many people have sold you wine using that term? Can you recommend a nice Pinot Noir? Yeah, I've got this one here. It's got a nice dose of umami. Who's mommy? No. So, I don't use it, but I talk about it for food pairing. My other thing on umami is not sprinkling MSG, but MSG is not necessarily a bad thing. Some of us get headaches from too much of it, but it's full of good stuff. It's glutamates. It's stuff that is basically beans and mushrooms are really rich in glutamates. So if you want a double dose of umami, what you need to do is get tofu with black bean sauce. So you've got umami coming at you from multiple directions. Throw some mushrooms in there, and they're really good. But soy sauce, this is all full of umami. Oh, we had to spin in this morning because I'm tired. So the sixth taste. But wait, there's more. There was actually a study that came out, I think, out of Central Florida that said the sixth taste is fat. Someone had once come up with the fifth taste being metallic, all sorts of different things, but not really widely agreed upon. But this is the real deal, I would say. So in November 2010, there was an article that came out and talked about the sixth taste discovered by researchers in Japan, but researchers in the U.S. had come up with the same thing, and they're calling it different names. And the researchers in the U.S. have no idea what the researchers in Japan are talking about, and vice versa. And it's not just a language difference, it's cultural differences, which was talked about in the aroma thing. But, do we call this Kokumi, because it's so hip to use the Japanese name, or do we just say it's calcium and other stuff that really extends and pushes flavor? To me, it's not important. It's their advertising. So it's the Ajinomoto Seasoning Company has come up with Koji Aji. I tried to get samples for all of you for this, but couldn't get them here. I don't care about their marketing stuff here. I care about what I get out of it. So I am not going to add to the blind tasting methodology sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami, kokumi. I'm not going there. I'm not rewriting the tasting methodology. But I'm saying this is something to be aware of as educators, because I got to tell you, when I'm teaching, I often see my audience do it. So, no, that's not true. I just looked that up on Wikipedia. It said. So, I think it's important for you to know about the 6 tastes, because now you're ahead of the curve. Because really, November 2010, this is still brand new stuff. That was the first publication. Second was January 2011, so it's really new stuff. Anyway, kojiaji seasoning, I think the most important ingredient in it is fish sperm. Okay, so there you have it. It's very healthy. So run out and get yourself a jar of fish sperm. And I made the mistake of asking for the kojiaji seasoning, and they said, it is not a seasoning, it is a flavor enhancer. All right, my apologies. So, blind tasting technique, we're going to get to tasting now. But I'm just running through this slide, and then we're going to taste the first ones. So, we only have 6 tastes. There we have it, and I'm not using them all. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter. Thank you, Briat Severin. I still believe you. Umami and kokumi. So, sweet is residual sugar in wines. This is fun. Try asking a crowd of people who have never taken a wine tasting class before. Don't tell them what sweetness is. And say, dry is the opposite of sweet in wine tasting terms. Wine 1, is it sweet or dry? Half the room will say sweet, half the room will say dry. They don't know what it is. And the point is that all wine started out as very sweet grape juice. It's how much of the sugar did the yeast end up eating? Did it eat it all? Half of it? Whatever. So this is sometimes in a dry wine, we go, wow, it's sweet. Well, wait. Remaining sugar? No. Fruity? Yes, fruity is a dry finish. So getting through that to beginners is a really key thing to get that initial understanding of just what is sweet. If we can't agree on sweet and dry, how are we going to agree on hints of huckleberries with the dusting of cocoa? How are we going to get there if we can't agree on sweet and dry? So that's, to me, really critical. All right, sour, acidity. In wine, it comes from grapes. So help me if I forget something, but we've got tartaric acid, malic acid. Tartaric and malic acid would naturally be in grapes. Lactic acid might be created through malolactic conversion. Those are the only acids we should have. We might have some citric acid, but frankly, I think most winemakers, if they're adding acid, can afford to buy tartaric instead of citric, because it doesn't really integrate as well. And I'm not going to ask anyone if they add acid to their wines, because they're not going to tell us anyway. Not you, but anyway. So, what is acid? Sour flavors and or mouth-watering. And this is back to the diagram of the tongue. The sides of the tongue, but to me, more importantly, insides of the cheeks. And more important to me, taste. We couldn't agree on what is flavor, what is taste yesterday. This was the confusion. To me, taste is almost more tactile reaction than flavor. Flavor is smell and taste combined. So, taste, the 4 tastes, it's all about tactile reaction. What happens, what do you do if your lemonade is too sour? You add sugar, you sweeten it. So, did that change the pH of the lemonade? No. Slightly through dilution, but not really. But it doesn't taste sour anymore. Does it still have acid? Yes, it still has acid. It's hidden by the sugar. And that's a key lesson. And a great learning exercise on that. An intro class, real low budget, would be some German ice wine would be a good way to do that. No, to see sugar levels through the roof, and 2 minutes later they're just dripping from the acid. That was on the inside of my mouth, sorry. You know what I meant. All right, next thing we got. So we got sweet, sour, bitter, tannin. Tannin coming, important. First-time students to get. Where does tannin come from? The skins, seeds, and stems of the grapes, plus wood, if it was used. So that is tannin. It is bitter flavors, but tactile reaction, drying out of the mouth. Briat Savarin said the back of the tongue. To me, it's the back of the tongue, but it's the gum line also. That is really important to me. That is grape tannin, the front of the gums, wood tannin on the back of the tongue. Anyway, salty, not in wine. Umami, not in wine. Kokumi. Ooh, I love to talk about minerality. Whoever attended that Greek session yesterday, I was getting all kokumi'd out on those whites. Yeah, there was chalk for days in those white wines, and that was lovely. But I don't need to say kokumi. I can say chalky minerality, and it makes me think it might be an old world wine, or was maybe grown in chalky soil somewhere. You know, so that's the extent. I'm done with umami and kokumi for the day.